The disciples of the sect Master Peak, in particular, averted their gazes, unable to bear watching the impending outcome. Every single disciple of the sect Master Peak had fallen to Tang Tianlong's full-force strikes just moments ago, and Fang Chen would be no exception. Their minds had already conjured the tragic scene in advance, Fang Chen being sent flying by a single punch, blood spewing from his mouth as his body was flung violently through the air. Bang! A sudden, dull crash shattered all their preconceived imaginings, yanking every gaze to the arena. A scene that would stun all onlookers unfolded before their eyes. Fang Chen remained rooted to his original spot, one hand still clasped behind his back. He had caught Tang Tianlong's ferocious full power fist with nothing but a single palm, as casually as if swatting a fly. The contrast could not have been starker. Fang Chen's expression was as calm and unhurried as ever, while Tang Tianlong's face twisted violently with agony. None knew the searing agony Tang Tianlong felt the moment his fist slammed into Fang Chen's palm. It did not feel like striking a human hand at all, but rather slamming into a solid block of forged steel. A bone-deep pain spread from his fist all the way up his arm. Fang Chen said coolly, "That is your full power strike, nothing more." As soon as the words left his mouth, Fang Chen flicked his wrist lightly. Tang Tianlong was sent flying like a flimsy paper dart, gliding a great distance before crashing heavily into the ground and rolling repeatedly across the stone surface. Several deep cracks spiderwebbed across the hard granite ground from the force of the impact. This sight sent a fresh wave of shock rippling through the entire crowd. Wang Qingyun, who had been waiting eagerly to see Fang Chen spitting blood and sent flying, shot upright on the sect Master Peak, exclaiming in shock, "How can this be?" Tang Tianlong's full our strike was actually repelled so easily by Fang Chen. The sect Master Peak disciples, who had averted their eyes from the expected outcome, looked over in confusion, their gazes equally filled with disbelief. What just happened? Why was Tang Tianlong the one sent flying? How did junior brother Fang do that? Disciples from the other peaks cried out in shock one after another. Did my eyes deceive me? Fang Chen defeated Tang Tianlong, who was attacking with full force with only a single hand. A commotion broke out among the elders. Wen Hongyao's face was filled with astonishment. This brat is actually this powerful. Even Zhao Wuji, who had suspected Fang Chen's strength was not insignificant, was flabbergasted. What in the world? His physical body is this monstrously strong, a full power strike from a foundation, establishment, realm, 8th layer cultivator can't even scratch him. Lai Qingfeng's face grew increasingly grim. This fellow's strength has improved by leaps and bounds since last time. Back then his physique was only strong enough to handle Na Yunjuo, who was at foundation, establishment, realm 7th layer. When fighting a foundation, establishment, 8th layer cultivator, he still needed to draw on his cultivation base. Now he doesn't even need that. He won a complete victory without even using a body refinement technique, just a simple strike. His heart sank further and further, especially as the elders kept crying out in amazement. His expression turned ugly. The incident where he had thrown Fang Chen onto the square back then would become a laughingstock for the entire sect. Even many of the grand elders were alarmed. Zheng Qiushuang exclaimed in shock, "Old Huang, your eye for talent is incredible. You could tell this boy possessed such a powerful body refinement technique." He received no response from Huang Jianshan for a long time, and when he turned to look, he found Huang Jianshan was even more stunned than he was, staring blankly at Fang Chen, unable to utter a single word. Shi Kaishan was also filled with intense shock. Earlier, we could claim Tang Tianlong was not taking the fight seriously, but now it is Fang Chen who is holding back. Not long ago, I watched Fang Chen use a body technique with my own eyes, and he was nowhere near this strong. In just a few short days, he has been thoroughly reborn, his strength rising to an entirely new level. Our heavenly sword Peak actually missed out on such a heaven-sent genius. At this thought, he glared viciously at Liu Wenchen. This grudge of having his disciple stolen would never be settled. Zhuang Yunian was equally astonished, thick delight blooming across his aged face. "Wenchen, you have surprised me greatly." "You rascal, why didn't you tell me you had such a talented body refinement disciple? I almost expelled him from the sect." Little did he know that Liu Wenchen was currently so shocked he could barely believe his own eyes. Was that truly his good, for-nothing disciple Fang Chen, who had just defeated Tang Tianlong barehanded? Feng Guchan, who had been feeling carefree and pleased just moments ago, shot straight up, roaring in fury, "Tang Tianlong, stop holding back. If you lose to Fang Chen, don't ever dare return to Reincarnation Peak. Who is Fang Chen?" A spirit rootless good, for nothing, universally acknowledged as the weakest martial artist in the entire sect. It would be acceptable if Tang Tianlong lost to any other Sect Master Peak disciple, but losing to a spirit rootless trash like Fang Chen will make us the laughingstock of the entire cultivation world. The very thought that my prized, carefully trained disciple is worse than a spirit rootless cultivator makes me feel like thousands of needles are pricking my skin. Tang Tianlong hurriedly clutched his aching waist, scrambling to his feet in utter disarray as he stared at Fang Chen in shock. How did you do that? He still could not believe he was weaker than Fang Chen. It was impossible. Fang Chen said coolly, "That's 2 moves already. Is that really the best you can do? Bring out the same viciousness you used against the Sect Master Peak disciples earlier." Tang Tianlong felt even more humiliated to be shamed by the infamous trash in front of the entire sect. "Preposterous! You are far too arrogant," Tang Tianlong roared. He summoned all the spiritual power in his body, switching to an incomplete finger technique of far greater power that he had comprehended from an ancient stone wall. Its might was immense. Feng Guchan had once appraised it as a top-tier technique even among high-rank mystic-grade cultivation methods. When paired with his Foundation Establishment Realm 8th layer cultivation base, it could force back even a Foundation Establishment 9th layer powerhouse. He had originally planned to keep it as his hidden trump card, but now he had no choice but to reveal it ahead of time. "Damned bastard, you dare to humiliate me. Die." He cast all caution to the wind, his only thought to beat Fang Chen into the ground and wash away the shame he had just suffered. Fang Chen nodded slightly. "Now that's more like it. In that case, I shall take this fight a little more seriously too." Battle Heaven 9 forms opened the heavens. He stepped forward, moving as fast as a flying bolt of lightning, and charged actively to meet the attack. His fists roared forward like ancient divine dragons surging from the depths of the sea, carrying a heaven-shaking might as they smashed violently towards his opponent. This marked the first time Fang Chen had taken the initiative to strike in the arena, as well as the first duel between him and Tang Tianlong, representing the far greater rivalry between Sovereign Peak and Samsara Peak. This clash drew unprecedented attention, as all onlookers burned to know whether Tang Tianlong had held back his full strength earlier, or if Fang Chen's physical arts were simply too overwhelmingly powerful. Boom! A teeth-gritting, jarring collision echoed across the entire arena in an instant, followed immediately by the crisp snapping sound of dry fire, wood being violently broken apart. The crowd stared with violently constricted pupils as Fang Chen's fist, forged as if from solid black iron, effortlessly snapped the fingers Tang Tianlong had jabbed forth. That seemingly ferocious finger art was no sturdier than tattered paper before Fang Chen's fist. Fang Chen's fist lost none of its momentum, crashing straight into Tang Tianlong's unguarded chest. Crack! 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 Dense, successive bone-shattering sounds rang out across the arena one after another. When the full force of the punch landed squarely in his chest, Tang Tianlong was sent flying as if struck by a soaring mountain peak. He was thrown back 7 to 8 zhang, slamming heavily right at Feng Guchan's feet. PFFD. No longer able to suppress his injuries, Tang Tianlong spat a fine mist of blood upwards, drenching Feng Guchan from head to toe. With this single strike, Tang Tianlong was critically wounded, and the entire arena fell dead silent. No one dared look at Fang Chen with the slightest trace of the contempt they had held for the useless, spirit-rootless trash just moments prior. Strength reigns supreme in the world of martial cultivation. The fact that he could gravely injure Tang Tianlong of the 8th layer of Foundation Establishment Realm with a single punch was ironclad proof of his power. Fang Chen retracted his fist, his kai steady and his expression unchanged as he said calmly, "You couldn't even last 3 moves. Your assessment rating is unqualified." The corners of the crowd's mouths twitched in unison. Tang Tianlong had been clamoring to mark Fang Chen as unqualified for the assessment, only for the exact opposite to come to pass. He couldn't even last a single move against Fang Chen, and he himself was the unworthy one. The disciples were already so shocked they had grown numb. The elder rank was also completely silent, and even the grand elders had fallen into an eerie quiet. They had seen exceptional assessment participants in the past, but a monstrous talent like Fang Chen was a first for all of them. Liu Wenchen stared stunned for a long while before he snapped back to his senses, his eyes alight with excitement, pride, and unbridled ecstasy. Tang Tianlong's severe injury meant the assessment official could be replaced at once. As the sect master, he immediately announced, "Tang Tianlong is wounded and no longer capable of presiding over the assessment. In light of Fang Chen's outstanding strength, he shall take over as assessment official and continue evaluating the disciples' ranks." All the disciples in the arena felt an indescribable sense of absurdity. In all of recorded sect history, had there ever been a disciple participating in a rank assessment who, mid-assessment, got promoted to be the assessment official himself? Absolutely not. Feng Guchan rose to his feet in a rage, roaring, "Fang Chen intentionally injured a fellow disciple. It is already generous of us not to punish him, and you dare make him assessment official. My most prized disciple has already suffered a humiliating loss. If we don't suppress the Sovereign Peak now, what will my Samsara Peak have to compete against the Sovereign Peak with?" Liu Wenchen said coldly, "This is an official edict from your sect master, not a matter for negotiation. Of course, if you can find a disciple more suitable than Fang Chen, you are welcome to put them forward." Feng Guchan was momentarily speechless. He did have another eldest disciple, but that disciple had been traveling outside the sect and had not returned. None of his other disciples were a match for Fang Chen. He immediately turned to appeal to the several Grand Elders. "Grand Elders, look at this. This is how Sect Master Liu usually bullies my Samsara Peak. I beg you to uphold justice for me." Hearing this, the several Grand Elders nearly swore out loud. How was this man capable of being so shameless? Did he think they were blind, that they couldn't see Tang Tianlong maliciously suppressing the Sovereign Peak's disciple earlier? Now that his own disciple was too arrogant and got taught a lesson, he is trying to turn the tables on the victim. Not to mention that the Grand Elders all greatly favored Fang Chen. Even if they had never known Fang Chen before, they would absolutely never help Feng Guchan perpetrate such injustice. Huang Jianshan said indifferently, "We Grand Elders do not interfere with the sect's internal affairs." That single sentence shut Feng Guchan down completely. Liu Wenchen was secretly overjoyed. "Old bastard, finally you get a taste of the helplessness I felt earlier when I had no one to turn to for help," he said in a relaxed, unhurried tone. "The disciple rank assessment shall continue." Feng Guchan gritted his teeth, staring daggers at Fang Chen, already bearing a deep, burning grudge against him. Fang Chen paid him no mind. As the new assessment official, he began drawing lots to assess the disciples. The disciples were terrified, having seen Fang Chen's terrifying physical prowess. They feared he would beat their brains out with a single punch. To their surprise, Fang Chen was extremely gentle when fighting the disciples, stopping as soon as he had assessed their strength, focusing only on testing their cultivation realm, their cultivation methods, and their practical combat experience, never harming them at all. Most importantly, he treated every disciple equally, which won Fang Chen unanimous praise from all the disciples, and also earned great prestige for the Sovereign Peak. It goes without saying that the Sovereign Peak is the true backbone of our Qingyun Sect. Seriously, if we left the disciple rank assessment to the Samsara Peak, how much trouble would they stir up? We might as well leave all disciple rank assessments to the Sovereign Peak to handle in the future, to avoid any more unfair incidents. Liu Wenchen was so delighted hearing these murmurs that his heart bloomed. The more he looked at Fang Chen, the more pleasing he found him. He thought to himself, if this kid had performed this well earlier, why would I have ever looked down on him? He chided him with a warm smile. But suddenly, a powerful Kai aura locked onto him, making his entire body tremble. He turned his head, only to see Shikaishin storming over furiously. Shikaishin grabbed him by the collar and snarled, "You little bastard, you've got some nerve." Liu Wenchen was taken aback and said hastily, "Grand Elder Shi, please speak calmly, whatever you have to say." Zhuang Yunian also hurried over to ask what was wrong. "Kaishin, what did Wenchen do to offend you?" Shikaishin found it hard to speak of the embarrassing matter, and said resentfully, "Fang Chen was originally a disciple brought back by my heavenly sword peak. That stupid disciple of mine was blind, left him abandoned in the square, and this Liu Wenchen had sharp eyes, found out he was a prodigy, and poached him for his own peak." There's such a thing. The several Grand Elders immediately crowded over, eager to hear the full gossip. After learning the full story, they looked at Lai Qingfeng with stunned expressions. "Wait, you left this heaven-defying body-refining genius abandoned in the square like a worthless weed, and ended up gifting him to Liu Wenchen for free. No wonder Shikaishin is this furious. This is simply a humiliating disgrace to Heavenly Sword Peak." The numerous elders abruptly snapped back to their senses, especially the few who had once taken a liking to Fang Chen, but were dissuaded by Lai Qingfeng's claim that he possessed no spiritual roots. Each of them gnashed their teeth in fury at Lai Qingfeng. This man had made them miss out on such a heaven-defying prodigy. Zheng Qiushuang spoke with undisguised envy, her tone sharp and tart. "Liu Wenchen, you rascals certainly have a knack for picking up overlooked treasures. A disciple no one else wanted, and you spotted he was a fine prodigy at first glance." Huang Jianshan huffed irritably. "My Wuji also intended to take Fang Chen as a disciple, did he not? But Liu Wenchen butted in out of nowhere and snatched him away. Liu Wenchen, I never would have Guest, you act all rash and impulsive on ordinary days, but you are actually a scheming, deep, thinking sort. Qingyun also released his grip on Liu Wenchen, grumbling unhappily. I see no great skill in you as sect master, but your ability to poach disciples is unmatched by anyone alive. Listening to these words that sounded like complaints on the surface but carried hidden praise, Zhuang Yunian hooked an arm around Liu Wenchen's neck with a proud look on his face. Good disciple. You have made your master overjoyed. Pushing you to take the sect master position all those years ago was the wisest decision I have ever made. At his age, what could bring him more glory than showing off in front of a group of grand elders? Liu Wenchen nodded repeatedly, his heart flooded with guilt as he subtly wiped cold sweat off his forehead. He had never seen that Fang Chen was a body refinement prodigy at all. He had only gritted his teeth and taken him as a disciple to preserve his daughter's reputation. Who would have thought the boy would turn out to be such an extraordinarily talented body cultivator? With that thought, he called out from afar, "Fang Chen, come here for a moment." Fang Chen hurried over and bowed respectfully. Disciple Fang Chen greets master, and greets all esteemed grand elders. Liu Wenchen clapped him on the shoulder, then addressed the grand elders present. Fellow grand elders, allow me to announce a matter to you. To tell you the truth, Fang Chen is not only my disciple, he holds another identity as well. Fang Chen was completely dumbfounded, thinking to himself, what other identity could I possibly have besides being your disciple? Several grand elders looked over, their faces filled with confusion, and wondered silently, could Fang Chen have some extraordinary hidden background? Zhuang Yunian snapped impatiently, "Stop dragging it out and keeping us in suspense. Spit it out already." Only then did Liu Wenchen laugh and say, "To be honest with all of you, Fang Chen is my son-in-law." The several grand elders froze for a moment, and Huang Jianchen gaped in shock. "You mean this boy and your daughter Liu Qingxian are a matched pair?" Liu Wenchen replied, "Exactly. It is somewhat embarrassing to speak of, but Fang Chen and my daughter pledged themselves to each other privately long before he entered the sect." Huang Jianchen was stunned for a long while before speaking with bitter envy. "You father and daughter certainly have an impeccable eye for picking people. You never miss a fine catch." Qingyun's expression turned even sourer. "What is there to announce? You don't actually think I am going to congratulate the two of you, do you?" Zheng Qiushuang curled her lip disdainfully. "Look at him preening and showing off." Zhuang Yunian, however, broke into a smile and gave Liu Wenchen a thumbs up. Fang Chen had displayed such extraordinary body refinement talent that the other grand elders could hardly be blamed for harboring thoughts of poaching him. Now that the matter between Fang Chen and Liu Qingxian was made public, they would naturally back off knowing they stood no chance. This, however, left Fang Chen completely stunned. "What? I am your son-in-law?" He hurriedly said, "Master, you must be mistaken. Senior sister and I share a completely pure and innocent relationship." Halfway through speaking, he recalled the scene where Liu Qingxian kissed him in the private box, and guilt immediately flooded his heart. Liu Wenchen clapped him on the shoulder and laughed. A man of honor should own up to his actions. There is no shame in admitting it. The several grand elders saw his guilty look and assumed the matter was true, and the little schemes they had harbored in their hearts vanished like wisp of smoke. When the disciples on the square received this news, they immediately erupted into an uproar. This was far more earth-shattering than Tang Tianlong's defeat. Liu Qingxian, the goddess of their dreams, had already become Fang Chen's woman. The hatred of stealing one's beloved is a feud that can never be forgiven. "Fang Chen, can you leave some for the rest of us? You have already taken both peerless beauties Liu Ruxu and Chen Xiling into your embrace, and now you have to snatch senior sister Liu too. This bastard really does not fear being struck by heavenly lightning while walking down the road. I wish he would father 18 sons." Chen Xiling was stunned stiff. Fang Chen and Liu Qingxian have already consummated their marriage. Liu Ruxu asked instead, "Do you believe that?" Chen Xiling let out a soft hum, calmed down and thought for a moment. Fang Chen was not such an irresponsible person. He had never even harbored any improper thoughts about his two fiancées, let alone Liu Qingxian, who shared no prior agreement or status with him. But sect master Liu Liu Ruxu sighed. "That is why having a good father is equivalent to getting the first pick of the moon when you live near the water. Even if there is nothing between Fang Chen and Liu Qingxian, once this announcement is made, the false becomes true, truer than the finest, most flawless pearl." I still underestimated the methods of this young Miss Liu. She actually invoked her father's authority to back her up. Yet her expression remained calm and unhurried. My stance remains unchanged. Whether she can gain a formal place by his side still requires my approval. Chen Xiling secretly rejoiced. "Look how sought. After Fang Chen was now, even the daughter of the Qingyun Sect master had to surmount countless hurdles to board Fang Chen's vessel, and even dragging her father into the matter was useless. Fortunately, she had joined his side early on. If it were now, she would almost certainly have no chance at all. Liu Wenchen swept his gaze across the assembled disciples. The disciple rating assessment has concluded. It is time to heed the decree of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion and dispatch disciples to the beast-tide frontlines. Now, I shall assign missions to all disciples who received a rating of good or higher. All these missions are issued by the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, and each corresponds to a different number of merit points. Naturally, the higher the merit points, the greater the danger involved. He took out stacks of mission jade slips, then consulted with several elders, and soon finalized the assignment of all missions. Liu Qingxian, you are assigned a Tier 1 mission. Proceed to the border of the giant sect and fend off the beast-tide head on. The crowd was struck with solemn awe. Just from the mission description alone, they knew Tier 1 missions were the most perilous. Facing the beast-tide directly, one could easily perish on the battlefield if they were caught off guard. Tang Tianlong, you are assigned a Tier 2 mission. Proceed to the Joyous Union Sect and scout the movement of the border beast-tide. Everyone understood tacitly. With Tang Tianlong's strength, he should have been assigned a Tier 1 mission, but because he had been gravely injured by Fang Chen, he could only be forced to take a Tier 2 mission with far lower risk but correspondingly far fewer merit points. Wang Chengjian, you are assigned a Tier 1 mission. Proceed to the border of the giant sect and fend off the beast-tide head on. In response, Wang Chengjian's expression remained completely impassive, his gaze fixed unwaveringly on Fang Chen the entire time. Fang Chen, you are assigned a Tier 3 mission. Proceed to the Grand Supreme Sect, escort a batch of spirit medicine, and deliver it to the Spirit Beast Sect. The disciples were all stunned. Fang Chen was so powerful, yet he was assigned to logistics. But upon second thought, this was a beast-tide. They were facing demonic beasts, whose greatest strength was their physical physique. Fang Chen's body refinement techniques were outstanding among humans, but they might not be as effective against demonic beasts. Instead, various cultivation methods could kill demonic beasts far more efficiently, so assigning Fang Chen to the rear lines was not unreasonable at all. Fang Chen was greatly disappointed. He was only assigned to do logistics, and he felt somewhat unwilling. This way, he would miss many opportunities to earn merits, but on second thought, the beast-tide was of such vast momentum that no part of the 9 sects continent would be spared. Every place would become a battlefield, so there was no need to rush for immediate gains. Completing the logistics work well and familiarizing himself with the environment of the 9 sects continent might not be a bad thing after all. Wang Chengjian, on the other hand, breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Fortunately, Fang Chen and Liu Qingxian were separated, while he was assigned to the same post as Liu Qingxian. He would properly persuade Liu Qingxian to leave this fellow who had such limited martial prospects. Next, all disciples with a rating of good or higher received their missions. Whether it was to intentionally curry favor with Liu Ruxu and Chen Xiling no one knew, but Liu Wenchen assigned them a joint 2 Urson mission, also a Tier 3 logistics mission. It was not only safe, but also allowed the two to stay together and look out for each other. Everyone with a discerning eye could see that Liu Wenchen was doing this as a favor to pave the way for his daughter to join their group. Fang Chen also breathed a quiet sigh of relief. For the two women to receive such a mission was the best possible outcome. As soon as dawn broke, disciples began leaving the sect gate one after another. Fang Chen also packed his belongings and set off. In order to bring the little Qilin with him, he had custom-made an oversized long robe overnight. The little Qilin could hide inside the robe, so he did not have to carry a conspicuous bag the entire time. With all preparations complete, he departed immediately. Following the instructions on his mission, he traveled non-stop for 5 days, and finally arrived at the Grand Supreme Sect. The mission stated that the escort team would include members from 3 other sects, but when he arrived at the main gate of the Grand Supreme Sect, he was the only one present. They were likely still on the road. Fang Chen muttered to himself, deciding to first collect the spirit medicine before anything else. He then held his mission jade slip and entered the Grand Supreme Sect. The Grand Supreme Sect's reaction seemed to be a step slower than the Qingyun Sect's. They were only preparing to select disciples to resist the beast-tide today, with the selection taking the form of a grand competition between the 9 peaks, though it had not officially begun yet. Taking advantage of the fact that they were not yet busy, Fang Chen quickly took his jade slip and headed to Divine Physician Peak, the mountain where the Grand Elder Qingyun Sect resided. The mission specified that the spirit medicine was to be collected from Qingyun Sect. When he climbed up to Divine Physician Peak, he found a group of disciples sitting in a pavilion discussing the Tao and exchanging martial insights. Among them was Xiaokej, who was as silent as ever, still not fond of such gatherings, but then she seemed to sense something and looked toward the entrance of the stone steps. She froze for a moment, then a faint, pleasantly surprised smile appeared on her pretty, cold face. She quickly stood up to greet him, calling out respectfully, "Martial uncle, what brings you here?" In the pavilion, several obviously high-status disciples frowned deeply. Qingyun Sect, the first disciple of the Grand Supreme Sect Master, wore a confused expression. "Martial uncle, did I hear that right?" Xiaokej called him martial uncle. "He looks around the same age as us." In truth, what bothered him most was that Xiaokej had always been cold and reserved, speaking very little when she was with them. Yet the moment she saw this young man, she actually showed an extremely rare smile and even greeted him warmly. This stark difference in attitude left a bitter taste in his mouth. Sitting next to Qingyun Sect was a tall, beautiful young woman with a faint scent of medicine on her body. Though she was not as breathtakingly beautiful as Xiaokej, she was still a rare, great beauty. She glanced at Fang Chen and said dismissively, "That's a junior brother our master acknowledged when he was at Qingyun Sect. I heard he's a spirit rootless disciple from Qingyun Sect called Fang Chen or something. I really don't know what master was thinking, bringing such a martial uncle to us Divine Physician Peak disciples. It's embarrassing to even talk about it. Only Xiaokej is kind enough to treat him as a martial uncle. None of the other senior or junior brothers and sisters acknowledge him." The fame of Fang Chen, the spirit rootless disciple, had long spread across the entire Nine Sects continent, so the disciples in the pavilion immediately understood. The hostility in Qingyun Sect's eyes vanished. A disciple like this, if he were in the Grand Supreme Sect, would not even have the qualification to speak to him, the first senior brother. He was not worthy of competing with him at all. Fang Chen looked at the exceedingly respectful Xiaokej and chuckled softly. "There is no need for excessive courtesy. Where is your master?" Xiaokej replied, "My master is currently in seclusion refining medicinal pills. I shall go invite him out immediately." Learning that he was in seclusion, Fang Chen raised a hand to stop her. "No hurry. We can wait until he exits seclusion. After all, we still have to await the rest of our mission companions." Glancing at the Taisheng Sect disciples waiting in the distance for Xiaokej to return, Fang Chen said, "Carry on with your duties. I shall come again later." Xiaokej shook her head. "No need. I never cared much for idle chatter anyway. I would be of no use there. It is rare for martial uncle to visit the Taisheng Sect. Let me show you around." Compared to chattering with a crowd discussing the martial Tao, she far preferred quiet solitude or exchanging insights on the Tao of medicine with others. The precious beast king's stomach pouch Fang Chen had gifted her last time had yielded far more potent medicinal pills when used for refining, saving a great many lives as a result. She had been overjoyed and had long wished to thank this martial uncle, so his visit was a perfect coincidence. Fang Chen thought for a moment, then said, "Very well, I have nothing else to occupy my time at present." The disciples in the pavilion were utterly dumbfounded. "Junior Sister Yan, what is wrong with Junior Sister Xiaokej?" Qingyun Sect was bewildered. Xiaokej, who always kept to herself and never grew close to others on ordinary days, was actually offering to wander around with a young man of her own accord. Yan Yuking, who sat beside him, also wore a look of unfamiliar astonishment. She had never seen Xiaokej treat a man with such politeness before. After a moment of contemplation, she stood up and chased after the two. "Xiaokej, senior brother Hua, and several other senior brothers and sisters are waiting for you to return." Xiaokej said calmly, "Senior sister, it is enough that you are there to keep them company. I wish to stay with martial uncle Fang for a while." With that, she walked down the mountain side by side with Fang Chen. How could Yan Yuking just let her leave? The Sect Grand Tournament was fast approaching, and Qingyun Sect had seized this rare opportunity to invite Xiaokej out of seclusion to exchange pointers and deepen their bonds. If she left, what was the point of continuing this small martial Tao exchange gathering? "Xiaokej, why not invite this martial uncle to join us as well?" She bit out the words martial uncle, an indescribable sense of revulsion rising in her chest. Xiaokej was unhappy about this, but Fang Chen could see that this group was centered around Xiaokej. If she did not return, this martial Tao exchange gathering would end before it even began. He had no intention of ruining an exchange gathering just because he had arrived. "We shall go together," Fang Chen said reluctantly. He disliked such occasions just as much as Xiaokej did, but he had no choice but to bite the bullet and attend. The Taisheng Sect disciples present felt no small amount of resistance to Fang Chen joining their gathering. If he had been a heaven's favorite of Qingyun Sect, such as Liu Qingxian, Wang Chengjian, or Tang Tianlong, they would have had no complaints. But he was nothing more than a disciple without a spiritual root, completely out of place at their martial Tao discussion meeting. "Martial uncle, take this seat." Xia Keoj offered her own seat to him, then knelt beside him and poured him a cup of hot tea, her demeanor one of attentive service. This sight made the other disciples feel even more disgruntled. Hua Xianchen frowned slightly. What status did Xia Keoj hold? She was a top 3 talent on the Golden Roll, a heaven's pride worthy of reverence. Did Fang Chen even deserve to be waited on by her? He had not a shred of self-awareness. He put on a gentle facade and probed. "Junior brother Fang, how did you come to be junior sister Keoj's martial uncle?" The question sounded like a simple inquiry, but in reality, he was questioning whether Fang Chen was even qualified for the title. Fang Chen naturally picked up on the doubt in his words and replied calmly, unperturbed by honor or disgrace. "I have a minor grasp of medical arts and was graciously taken in by divine physician Shang Yuan as his junior brother." The disciples thought to themselves secretly, "Knows medical arts? He is so young, how skilled can he possibly be? Could it be that Saint Elder Shang Yuan has grown senile and recognized you as a junior brother on a whim?" It was not only the Outer Peak disciples who looked down on this so-called unearned martial uncle. Disciples of the Divine Physician Peak were even less willing to acknowledge his status. A faint ripple crossed Yan Yuking's beautiful eyes as she said, "What a coincidence, martial uncle. We were just discussing how to treat injuries inflicted by demonic beasts. I am Yan Yuking, and I wish to seek your guidance on the matter." Fang Chen laughed bitterly in his heart. This was a test of his medical Tao attainments as a martial uncle. He had no intention of showing off the peerless techniques of the undying physician, but since the other party had pressed the question directly, he had no choice but to answer. There are many ways a demonic beast can injure someone: claw wounds, bite wounds, blunt impact injuries, poison wounds, and hallucinogenic injuries. Different wounds also come in varying degrees of severity. How can I give a conclusive answer when you generalize all cases like this? The crowd was taken aback by his logical, well-structured response. He actually sounded like he knew what he was talking about. Yan Yuking, however, dismissed it as nothing special. This was merely basic injury assessment, something even a 3-year-old child could understand. Yan Yuking put on a look of earnestly seeking guidance and said, "We were specifically discussing poison wounds, where the poison has already seeped into the 4 limbs, 100 bones, and penetrated the lungs and internal organs, beyond the reach of acupuncture and stone remedies. What does martial uncle think the treatment should be?" She cast a subtle glance at one of the disciples in their group. His complexion looked normal on the surface, but he was actually deeply afflicted by a rare poison from a demonic beast. Right now, Qingyun Sect was in seclusion precisely because he was rushing to concoct an antidote elixir for this disciple. Yan Yuking wanted to see what kind of diagnosis this unearned martial uncle would come up with. No matter what he said, she would never accept it. She was determined to pick holes in his reasoning and refute him publicly, making a fool of him so he would be too ashamed to stay on Divine Physician Peak any longer. Fang Chen was speechless. Different types of poison required different treatment methods. How could they all be lumped together like that? Suddenly, his peripheral vision swept past the crowd, and his gaze landed on that very disciple. A look of realization crossed his face. "The person you mentioned whose poison has seeped into his 100 bones is this disciple here, is it not?" As soon as these words left his mouth, Yan Yuking's face went stiff, and the other disciples wore looks of shock. How did he know that? A trace of doubt crossed Yan Yuking's face. "How did you know that?" Fang Chen frowned and asked in return, "Is that difficult to see? Though his complexion looks normal, there are 3 streaks of blood vessels on either side of his nose, white waxy secretions seeping from the roots of his hair, red and swollen earlobes, and abnormal breathing. Are these not obvious signs that a powerful poison has invaded his 4 limbs and 100 bones?" He cast a strange look at Yan Yuking. "Are you not a disciple of Divine Physician Peak? Why does this basic diagnostic technique seem so difficult in your eyes?" The surrounding disciples were stunned speechless. This guy actually had some real skill. Anyone who was not in the medical Tao field would never be able to tell that this disciple had a deep internal poison infection. Yan Yuking had intended to humiliate Fang Chen, but ended up being reprimanded instead. Flustered and furious, she said, "Who says I do not know how? I was just worried that martial uncle would not be able to tell." Guilty, she quickly changed the subject, saying, "If that is the case, tell us what the treatment is, martial uncle." She was seething with rage inside. He had made her lose face in front of the elite disciples of Qingyun Sect. Today, she would definitely find a flaw in Fang Chen's reasoning and make him taste the humiliation of being publicly corrected as well. Fang Chen looked at the disciple again. The latter was already somewhat awestruck and carefully extended his hand. "Do you need to take my pulse?" Fang Chen swiped 2 fingers before his eyes, silently casting the Kai observation technique to examine the condition of the disciple's internal body. Several breaths passed. He then said, "You were bitten by a tiger, striped demonic snake, were you not? How strange. The territory of Qingyun Sect is warm and humid, but tiger, striped demonic snakes prefer hot, dry environments. There should be no tiger, striped demonic snakes within the Qingyun Sect borders." Hua Xiangchen was shocked. You can even tell what kind of demonic beast injured him. Even divine physician Qingyun was not entirely certain. Yan Yuqing was secretly delighted. There was the flaw she was looking for. There were thousands of types of poisonous demonic beasts. Fang Chen had not even taken the disciple's pulse, yet he could pinpoint the origin of the poison. Unless her grandmaster, the undying physician, was resurrected, no one could do that. "Martial uncle, are you certain? If your diagnosis is wrong, people could die," she reminded him, feigning concern. Fang Chen looked at the disciple and asked, "Did you get a clear look at the demonic beast that bit you?" The disciple nodded. "I saw it clearly, but no one recognized it when I described it." There were far too many types of demonic beasts, and the snake demon that bit him was extremely obscure. They had asked all the elders of Qingyun Sect, and none of them could identify what kind of demonic snake it was from his description. Fang Chen nodded, pulled a * demonic beast illustrated compendium * from his bosom, unfurled it, and searched for a short moment before his finger landed on the illustration of a serpent demon covered entirely in striped patterns that looked just like tiger pelt at first glance. "Is this it?" The disciple laid eyes on the illustration and immediately exclaimed excitedly, "That's right, exactly, that's the one. I kept saying it had tiger patterned skin, so many people said I was seeing things, and no such serpent demon exists in the world. So its real name is the tiger, striped demonic serpent." At this, all the seated disciples could no longer remain calm, and their expressions as they looked at Fang Chen shifted entirely. Hua Xiangchen muttered, "He actually has some real skill. Even divine physician Qingyun couldn't identify the poison for sure, yet he recognized it immediately." A disciple also showed a trace of admiration. This man is not only highly skilled in medicine, but also has exceptionally profound research on demonic beasts. We couldn't even guess what demonic beast it was just from the description, yet he only took one look at the victim's complexion and deduced what serpent demon it was based on the poison's characteristics. No wonder Keoj respects him so much, and no wonder divine physician Qingyun acknowledged him as his junior brother. This man truly possesses medical skills far beyond the reach of ordinary people. Now Yan Yuqing was put in an awkward spot. She had intended to make this nominal junior uncle make a fool of himself, yet he had stolen the limelight time and time again instead. This only made her look like someone who could not recognize a true master standing before her. Biting her red lip lightly, she still refused to be convinced and said, "May I ask then, junior uncle, how should this disciple be cured of the poison? Acupuncture and stone therapy are already useless after all." She planned to harshly criticize his treatment methods, determined to humiliate him no matter what. Fang Chen, however, reprimanded her sternly. "Did divine physician Qingyun not teach you that you must never be headstrong and stubborn when dealing with illnesses? Why are you so arbitrary as to claim that acupuncture is useless?" Yan Yuqing's face flushed red. "Are you addicted to criticizing me? You keep doing it over and over again." Her face turned ashen as she said, "The poison has already seeped into every limb and bone. Silver needles can only affect the skin, flesh, and meridians. They cannot reach the bones at all. Am I wrong?" She simply decided to confront him head on. Today, either this junior uncle of hers does not live up to his title, or she as a disciple is unskilled in her craft. In any case, one of the two of them had to lose face today. Zia Keoj said displeasedly, "Senior sister, how can you speak to junior uncle like that? He is criticizing you for your own good. A physician cannot tolerate even the slightest bit of negligence." Yan Yuqing huffed, "I am not wrong, so why should I accept criticism? Unless he uses silver needles to prove to me how he can expel the deadly poison from this disciple's body." Fang Chen shook his head. Learning medicine with such a mind said would only lead to her harming patients in the future. It was necessary to teach her the meaning of humility. He immediately took out a jade box, and upon opening it, rows of silver needles with bright blue flames burning at their tails came into everyone's view. Yan Yuqing was greatly shocked. Master's blue flamed silver needles. How did they end up in your hands? Panic began to creep into her heart. These needles were Master's most beloved treasure. Normally, disciples like them were not even allowed to touch them, yet Master had given them to Fang Chen. This made it clear that his decision to acknowledge Fang Chen as his junior brother was not a passing whim, but a serious, well-considered choice. Could it be that Fang Chen could really remove the deadly poison using only silver needles? At this thought, she could not help but bite her red lip lightly, her eyes filled with defiance. She refused to believe that a young man around her age was actually qualified to be her junior uncle. Fang Chen did not dawdle. He ordered the poisoned disciple to remove his upper garments and lie down on the stone table, then began administering acupuncture on the spot in front of all the gathered disciples. Unlike mortal physicians who inserted needles one by one, he slammed his palm against the jade box, sending all the silver needles flying into the air. He then wrapped them in spiritual power, keeping them suspended midair before arranging them into a unique formation according to their length. At first glance, it looked just like the legendary sword formations. Each silver needle was connected end to end to the next, and under the activation of spiritual power, those blue flames miraculously ignited the next silver needle in line, burning every needle until they were bright blue all over. In the blink of an eye, the set of silver needles transformed into a blue formation diagram, both mysterious and complex in appearance. Xiaoqiuge frowned, staring intently at this formation diagram. It seemed somewhat familiar to him, yet he could not recall where he had seen it for a moment. Yan Yuqing, however, snorted. Is he putting on an acrobatic show? If the immortal healer, our founding ancestor, knew that one of the 3 sets of silver needles he left behind was being toyed with like this, he would never rest in peace, even in death. The surrounding disciples came back to their senses, also showing looks of confusion. This looked impressive, yes, but were they not here to treat an illness? Was he just showing off his skills by playing with the silver needles like this? Just at that moment, the stone door of the nearby pill refining chamber suddenly opened, and billows of green smoke poured out. Qingyun Sect stumbled out looking rather disheveled, clearly showing that his attempt to prepare the antidote elixir had not gone smoothly. Yan Yuqing's eyes lit up, and she immediately ran forward to snitch. Master, look, someone is ruining your blue flame silver needles. She was ecstatic inside. Ha ha ha. Serves you right for showing off. You got caught red. Handed by Master. Let's see how you get out of this one. However, when Qingyun Sect followed her gaze to look over, he was first stunned, falling into deep thought just as Xiaoqiuge had earlier. Then his eyes suddenly burst forth with shocked, awestruck light, and his old face twisted with excitement as he slapped his thigh and exclaimed, "Ah, so this is the true way to use the blue flame silver needles. I have held these needles for so many years, yet I never understood this. No wonder these needles never worked as miraculously for me as they did for my master." He walked over quickly, not daring to disturb Fang Chen, his old eyes locked firmly on Fang Chen's operating technique without blinking. This scene left Yan Yuqing completely stunned. It turned out Fang Chen was not putting on an acrobatic show, but activating the true usage method of the blue flame silver needles. As the silver needle formation was completed, Fang Chen pressed down with one palm, and the dense mass of silver needles shot down like streaks of blue light, inserting themselves into the disciples, back in perfect alignment with the preset formation. The disciple let out a sharp groan of pain, and streams of pitch black deadly poison poured out from every limb and bone of his body along the silver needles. When the poison splattered onto the stone table, it corroded tiny pits all over its surface. When the venom ceased sputtering, Fang Chen raised his hand and summoned the silver needles through the air. The azure flames coating the surface of the silver needles incinerated every last trace of residual poison clinging to them, leaving the needles as pristine as if they were newly forged. "It is done." He placed the silver needles into a jade box. The disciple stood up and moved his limbs around, his face alight with astonishment and joy. "The pain is gone. The ache deep in my bones is truly gone." Yan Yuqing found this almost unbelievable. That was poison that had seeped deep into the very marrow. How could it be so easily extracted with mere silver needles? Yet after she finished taking his pulse, Yan Yuqing was struck dumb with shock. The poison was indeed completely eradicated. This feat also left the elite disciples of the Supreme Sect utterly astounded. This disciple without a spiritual root was actually a supreme master of the healing path, at the very least a full tier above disciples of Yan Yuqing's caliber. Fang Chen put away the silver needles, then instructed Yan Yuqing earnestly, "Since you have taken divine physician Qingyun as your master, you ought to devote more effort to the healing path, not sully his illustrious reputation." It was plain to see that Yan Yuqing was different from Xiaoqiuge. Her heart was set far more on the path of martial cultivation, and she had not dedicated herself to studying the healing arts. Qingyun Sect asked in confusion, "Junior brother, did my disciple Yuqing offend you in some way?" When he had announced Fang Chen as their martial uncle, he had feared his disciples would be disgruntled, for Fang Chen's reputation as a man without spiritual roots was indeed hard for many to accept. Fang Chen glanced at the now visibly anxious Yan Yuking and smiled calmly. Not at all. I was merely discussing healing principles related to toxicology with her. Qingyun Sect was a shrewd old cultivator who had lived through countless years. How could he fail to understand that Fang Chen was covering for her? He silently marveled at Fang Chen's generous and benevolent nature, lamenting inwardly that his disciples did not know to cherish such an excellent martial uncle. He smiled wryly. Your mastery of the healing path is still far superior to mine, junior brother. This old man can only admit defeat in shame. Yan Yuking and the group of Supreme Sect disciples felt a massive wave of shock surging in their hearts once more. The number one divine physician of the entire 9 sects lands had openly admitted he was inferior to Fang Chen in the field of healing arts. What earth-shattering news this was! For a moment, all the disciples seated around the stone table rose to their feet in unison. If even the Grand Elder treated Fang Chen with such profound respect, what right did a bunch of junior disciples like them have to remain seated? Junior brother, what brings you to the Supreme Sect? Only then did Qingyun Sect remember to ask. Fang Chen took out his mission jade slip and said, As it happens, I would like you to take a look at this, senior brother. Qingyun Sect picked it up and glanced at it, then froze in astonishment. They assigned you a Tier 3 mission. What could Sect Leader Liu be thinking? A healing master of your caliber ought to be dispatched to the front lines to carry out Tier 1 missions, treating the wounded. He found this completely inconceivable. Fang Chen smiled helplessly. The sect leader must have his own reasons for this arrangement. I shall simply carry out the mission as ordered. Qingyun Sect could not say anything more on the matter. After all, this was an internal affair of the Azure Cloud sect. As an elder of an external sect, he had no right to criticize their decisions. Since it is you, junior brother, who is carrying out the spirit medicine escort mission, I have full confidence. However, the final batch of spirit medicines is still being refined. Would you be so kind as to remain in the Supreme Sect for half a day? Fang Chen cupped his hands in salute. Thank you for your trouble, senior brother. Qingyun Sect wasted no more time issuing orders. Keoj, assist me in pill refining. Yuking, accompany your martial uncle to tour the Supreme Sect grounds. Zia Keoj frowned slightly, saying, Master, let me accompany martial uncle instead. Senior sister can assist you with pill refining. She still had a great many questions about the healing path that she wanted to ask Fang Chen for guidance on. Qingyun Sect said nothing in response. Left with no choice, Zia Keoj could only sigh and follow Qingyun Sect into the secret chamber. After the stone door was closed shut, Qingyun Sect sat down looking somewhat fatigued and said, You have already earned your martial uncle's favor, but Yuking has not. I am leaving this opportunity to Yuking this time, in the hope that she can seize it. Qingyun Sect had already reached the age of destiny, and knew his days were numbered. None of his disciples had yet reached the level he was satisfied with, and he feared that the reputation of the divine physician Peak would be lost after his death. Fang Chen's arrival had given him hope. Fang Chen would undoubtedly become a generation's legendary divine physician in the future, on par with the undying healer. If his two most beloved disciples, Zia Keoj and Yan Yuking, could both earn his favor, their future attainments in the healing path would certainly not be inferior to his own. Now that Zia Keoj had already secured this opportunity, only Yan Yuking remained. On the peak, the martial arts exchange gathering could no longer continue. Hua Zhangchen stared deeply at Fang Chen for a moment, then took his leave with the large group of disciples, leaving only Fang Chen and Yan Yuking behind. Fang Chen had just reprimanded Yan Yuking, so their relationship was hardly amicable. He silently descended the peak, planning to wander around the area. He had heard that the Supreme Sect placed great emphasis on unlocking the comprehension potential of its disciples, so their disciples generally had higher comprehension than those of other sects. This meant the cultivation methods they practiced were often stronger than those of external sects, and their strength at the same cultivation realm was greater, which was how the Supreme Sect had secured its position among the top 3 sects. After walking a few steps, he noticed Yan Yuking following behind him without a word. Fang Chen frowned and said, I wish to wander alone. There is no need for you to follow. Yan Yuking's face was expressionless as she replied, How dare I disobey my master's orders? Wherever martial uncle goes, I shall accompany you. Hearing the obvious reluctance in her tone, Fang Chen said nothing more and headed straight away from Divine Physician Peak. He spotted a few disciples hurrying at the foot of the mountain, their voices carrying over, Hurry, someone has comprehended a movement technique under the heart tempering steel. A movement technique? Those are extremely rare. Let's go take a look. Heart-tempering steel. Curiosity stirred in Fang Chen's heart, and he followed closely behind the group. Yan Yuking rolled her eyes discreetly and gave a snide, sarcastic reminder. Martial uncle, the heart-tempering steel is a place for cultivating profound cultivation methods. Even if you go, you will only be able to watch the commotion from the sidelines. Fang Chen paid her no heed. With his hands clasped behind his back, he moved as swiftly as the wind, vanishing from sight in the blink of an eye. Seeing him so stubbornly refuse to heed her advice, Yan Yuking fumed. What are you going there for? Don't think I don't know your little schemes. My master ordered me to accompany you in the hope that you would impart some of your medical knowledge to me, but I care far more about making progress in the martial path. You simply cannot give me the opportunities I crave. It turned out she was perfectly clear on Qingyun Sheng's arrangement. She simply had no interest in the medical path. When she took Qingyun Sheng as her master back then, she only wanted the prestige of being the disciple of a generation of divine physicians, which would grant her connections both inside and outside the sect, helping her advance further in the martial path in the future. The medical path was nothing more than a stepping stone for her pursuit of the martial path. Thus, even though she knew full well that Fang Chen's medical skills were so exquisite that even Qingyun Sheng could not match him, she felt not a shred of admiration for him. For what she desired were martial path resources, the martial path itself, and in this regard, Fang Chen, who possessed no spirit root, could give her nothing at all. Watching him head for the heart-tempering steel despite her warnings, she had no choice but to follow after him, seething with anger. You are bringing humiliation upon yourself. If you get wronged later, don't you dare blame me for not warning you first. She hiked up her skirt and followed after him huffily, muttering non-stop under her breath. Every disciple who cultivates insights under the heart-tempering steel long term is a figure of exceptional comprehension and towering pride. If you don't have any real skill, you will only be met with disdain if you go there. Even she, as a divine physician's disciple, felt a measure of resistance towards the heart-tempering steel. Her comprehension of the martial path was far from outstanding. She had once tried to comprehend an abstruse cultivation method under the steel, only to make no progress for a long time. She was then mercilessly mocked by a group of disciples with high comprehension, who jeered things like the divine physician's disciple is nothing special, and she is unworthy of being senior sister Zia Keoj, among other cruel insults. This left her with no courage to ever step foot near the heart-tempering steel again. But Fang Chen was determined to go, so she had to summon up her courage and set foot there once more. When she arrived, a large number of disciples had already gathered beneath the heart-tempering steel. They watched a young woman in red with faces full of envy. She had a fine figure, and her looks could only be described as fairly pretty. She had thin lips, and a hint of malice glinted in her eyes, giving her a very sharp, mean-spirited aura. Right now, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, she was demonstrating movement techniques repeatedly before the massive steel. Like a dragonfly skimming the surface of water, she would tap the tip of her toe lightly against the ground and leap effortlessly a full 2 zhang. When she landed again, another light tap was all it took, and she covered a distance of dozens of zhang in mere moments, winning thunderous applause and cheers from the entire crowd. This is * Wild Goose Soars Through the Vast Skies *, our sect's only movement cultivation method. No one has successfully comprehended it in 3 years. Junior sister Jiangqin is truly the most talented heaven-blessed prodigy of our generation. If you count across the entire Taisheng sect, the number of people who have comprehended this cultivation method can be counted on one hand. Yan Yuking felt extremely uncomfortable hearing these words. Back then, she had overestimated her own strength and tried to challenge this movement technique, which was known as the hardest to comprehend, only to be mocked by the entire crowd. The one who mocked her the most was none other than Jiangqin. Jiangqin was jealous of her looks, her figure, and her status as the divine physician's disciple, so her words had been especially cruel and venomous. Now, watching Jiangqin easily comprehend the cultivation method she had never been able to master, Yan Yuking felt an indescribable ache in her heart. She glanced at Fang Chen in the distance, walked over, and tugged gently at his sleeve silently. In a low, dejected tone, she said, "Martial uncle, let's go somewhere else." Fang Chen had only come here out of curiosity about the so-called heart-tempering steel. When he discovered that the steel merely emitted a faint mind, soothing aura that could calm one's spirit and aid in comprehension, he immediately lost all interest. As for Jiangqin's movement technique, to him, who had attained an extremely high level of mastery in movement techniques, it was even less worthy of his attention. He nodded, turned around, and said, "Let's go, we'll wander somewhere else." Yan Yuking heaved a sigh of relief. Spending even a single moment longer in this place felt like having thorns pressed against her back, making her uncomfortable all over. She took light, graceful steps and turned to leave. But everyone else was roaring with applause, so their turn to leave stood out like a sore thumb. It was impossible for Jiang Qin not to notice them. As a result, she recognized Yan Yuking at a glance. Well, if it isn't the famous Yan Yuking, disciple of the divine physician, Jiang Qin said in a sarcastic, sneering tone the moment she opened her mouth. Did you think you're good enough again, coming here to try cultivating this movement technique? Oh, sorry, I already mastered it first.
Yan Yuking's body went stiff. She turned her head and shot Jiang Qin an angry, embarrassed glare. I only came here to accompany my martial uncle, that's all.
Jiang Qin, however, never passed up an opportunity to humiliate Yan Yuking. Back then, she had also tried to take Qingyun Sect as her master, but Qingyun Sect had chosen Yan Yuking instead, saying that Yan Yuking's talent for the medical path was higher than hers. This had left Jiang Qin nursing a grudge ever since. She had always believed that Yan Yuking had only won Qingyun Sect's favor because she was prettier than her. What martial uncle? You mean that snot-nosed little brat who hasn't even grown all his hair yet? Jiang Qin mocked. If you want to cultivate, just say so. What's the point of making excuses? Are you afraid you'll fail to comprehend it and embarrass yourself again? Don't be scared, I'm here, right? If you beg me nicely, maybe I'll be in a good enough mood to teach you. These words drew peals of laughter from many female disciples who were jealous of Yan Yuking's looks. She's nothing but a pretty vase. She's useless at medicine, useless at the martial path. All she can do is curry favor with the senior brothers of the sect, who actually takes her seriously. Yan Yuking's face flushed bright red with shame and rage. Jiang Qin, when did I ever wrong you? Is there any need to be so cruel to me? Jiang Qin's smiling expression vanished instantly as she let out a cold snarl, calling me vicious. You wretched woman, how dare you slander me? Apologize to me right now, or you shall not leave this place today. Yan Yuking trembled with rage, tears swirling in her eyes. She could not fathom what fault she had committed to deserve such aggressive, unrelenting persecution. Crying is useless. Weep before those senior brothers, and they might dote on you, but it will get you nowhere with me. Apologize this instant, or I will not mind slapping you across the face twice. Jiang Qin snapped, her tone sharp and unyielding. Though the two of them possessed comparable martial aptitude, Yan Yuking had split her focus between cultivation and the way of medicine, so her martial achievements were naturally far lower than Jiang Qin's. If they truly came to blows, Yan Yuking would be completely and utterly dominated. Fang Chen frowned slightly. While Yan Yuking was not particularly endearing to him, she was his martial niece after all. Seeing her being bullied and hounded so aggressively, he, as her martial uncle, could not possibly pretend he had seen nothing. Jiang Qin, is it? Fang Chen stared at her coldly. You are young, yet your temper is monstrously large. You just insulted my martial niece with your words. Apologize to her, right now, immediately. All the disciples present froze in place, turning to look at Fang Chen with confused expressions. He really is Yan Yuking's martial uncle. Yan Yuking was also slightly stunned. She had never expected Fang Chen to stand up for her at this moment, and a surge of warmth and gratitude rose unbidden in her heart. But the moment she recalled Fang Chen's supposed martial prowess, she hurriedly said, Forget it, martial uncle. Let us just ignore her. I will take you somewhere else. Jiang Qin flew into a rage. She had failed to force Yan Yuking to apologize, and now she was being demanded to apologize herself. It was simply unheard of. Did I give you permission to leave? She pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with fury. She snarled viciously, I don't care if you are Yan Yuking's martial uncle or not. This is between her and me. What right do you have to interfere? Scram as far away as you can. Yan Yuking, kneel and apologize to me, or when my slap lands on your face. She was still mid-sentence. Suddenly, Fang Chen's arm trembled as he pulled free of Yan Yuking's grip. Spiritual light rippled beneath his feet, his figure moving as fast as a ghost. The mere several zhang of distance between the two of them was nothing to Fang Chen, whose movement technique allowed him to cross over a dozen zhang in a single step. He arrived before her in the blink of an eye. He did not hold back in the slightest, raising his hand and slapping her hard across the face. Asterisk smack. Asterisk, the crisp sound of the slap stunned everyone present. Is this the slap you were talking about? Fang Chen asked coldly. Yan Yuking stood frozen in shock. Before she could even process what had happened, Fang Chen had already slapped Jiang Qin hard across the face. Jiang Qin was also left reeling from the slap. She only registered a blur before her eyes before she was struck. What had just happened? As a burning, stinging pain spread across her face, Jiang Qin finally came back to her senses, and overwhelming humiliation flooded her chest. She roared shrilly, "You dare slap me, I will kill you." She had always been vicious and domineering, only ever bullying her fellow disciples, never suffering the humiliation of being publicly slapped. She lost all reason on the spot, roaring as she struck out with a palm aimed directly at Fang Chen's heart. "Watch out!" Yan Yuqing cried out in terror. Jiang Qin was at the 8th layer of the Foundation establishment realm, and the palm technique she cultivated was renowned for its overwhelming power. If that palm struck his chest, it could easily kill him. Fang Chen's gaze turned frosty, truly vicious. She thinks she can insult others as she pleases, but the moment she suffers the slightest humiliation, she immediately tries to take a life. He had no intention of indulging someone like her. He struck back with a fist. Asterisk boom. Asterisk, even without using the 9 stances of Battle Heaven, his punch was not something just anyone could withstand. Before Jiang Qin's palm could land, she was struck in the shoulder blade, screaming in agony as she was sent flying backwards. She crashed heavily into a crowd of disciples, knocking over a swat of people, and wails of pain immediately rang out across the field. Yan Yuqing's beautiful eyes went wide with disbelief. Wasn't Fang Chen said to be a disciple with no spiritual roots? What was going on here? Someone as strong as Jiang Qin had been sent flying by a casual punch from him. That single punch also knocked Jiang Qin back to her senses. She stared at Fang Chen in shock, only now realizing that the man Yan Yuqing called her martial uncle was far from ordinary. She gnashed her teeth and snarled venomously, "Fine, fine, I will remember what happened today. Yan Yuqing, you wait for me. I will repay today's humiliation twice over in the future. You had better pray your martial uncle stays by your side to protect you forever." Yan Yuqing's heart sank. She grew anxious secretly. Someone as petty and vengeful as Jiang Qin would repay a single injury 100-fold. It looked like her martial uncle had tried to help her, but in reality, he had just landed her in deeper trouble. Fang Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. "It seems you still have not realized the error of your ways." Jiang Qin sneered venomously. "HMPH, I admit you have some strength, but I have mastered a movement technique. Do you really think you are worthy of stopping me if I want to leave?" With that, she activated her movement technique, leaping 2 zhang into the air like a dragonfly skimming the water's surface. As she fled, she turned her head and snarled threateningly, "Rest assured, the humiliation you have given me will be repaid twice, 10 times, 100 times over on Yan Yuqing. If I do not avenge this insult, I swear I am no human being." Fang Chen let out a cold snort. "You learned a trifling movement technique, and think no one can do anything to you. You are merely showing off your trivial skills before an expert." As soon as the words left his mouth, he directly activated the 2nd layer of his movement technique, read crossing the river. Asterisk whoosh, asterisk, the moment he moved, the air screamed around him from the sheer speed of his passage, and he crossed over a dozen zhang of distance in a single step. The surrounding disciples erupted into thunderous cries of shock. Over a dozen zhang in 1 step. That is a movement technique at great attainment. Yan Yuqing's martial uncle is a top expert with a great attainment movement technique. Heaven, what is his background? Even our sect master's movement technique only allows him to cross 8 zhang in a single step. Jiang Qin heard the commotion behind her. She frowned and turned her head to look back, and the sight made her scream out in terror on the spot. Before anyone could react, Fang Chen covered a distance of over a dozen zhang in a single stride, appearing right beside her. This movement technique was 10 times more profound than her own. In the next instant, her gaze locked onto a pair of icy cold eyes. The very next moment, Fang Chen slammed a heavy fist into her chest, sending her flying backward once more until she crashed before the heart-tempering steel. Cough, cough, with no one to cushion her fall this time, she crashed heavily into the ground, coughing up blood violently as she stared at Fang Chen in the distance with a face full of terror. Before she could struggle to her feet, her vision blurred again. Fang Chen casually crossed several zhang of distance to stand right before her. Jiang Qin was terrified and immediately activated her movement technique. But her movement technique, which only allowed her to cover 2 zhang per step, was no faster than a snail crawling in front of Fang Chen. Barely had her toes touched the ground when Fang Chen caught up to her, landing another solid blow. After this happened several times in a row, Jiang Qin was finally frightened out of her wits. When Fang Chen threw another punch her way, she immediately hugged her head and begged, "Senior, I know I was wrong. Please stop hitting me." That suffocating feeling of being unable to escape no matter how hard she tried made her realize she had encountered an unfathomable expert she could never afford to offend.
Fang Chen retracted his fist and said coldly, "The last person who acted so recklessly had every bone in their body shattered by me. I hope you will not be the next."
Jiang Qin nodded repeatedly, like a chicken pecking at rice.
Fang Chen said, "Then, why haven't you apologized to my martial niece yet?"
Jiang Qin was thoroughly terrified. She hurried over to Yan Yuking, bowed deeply, and said, "Senior sister Yan, I was wrong in the past."
Yan Yuking nodded dazedly. Oh, it's all right now." She was completely stunned. What on earth was the background of this martial uncle of hers?
Not only did he possess terrifying combat power, he also had unmatched movement techniques. She had never heard of anyone whose movement technique had been cultivated to the point where they could cover over a dozen zhang in a single step.
If he used it with full power, wouldn't he be able to fly across flat ground?
Fang Chen walked over and said, "Let's go find another place to look around." He walked a few steps forward, then frowned when he saw Yan Yuking still standing rooted to the spot. "What are you still standing there for?"
"We made such a huge commotion. The upper echelons of the Qingyun Sect will arrive soon. If we don't leave quickly, do you want to wait around for them to interrogate us?" Yan Yuking finally snapped back to her senses and hurriedly replied, Oh, right, yes, martial uncle." She lifted the hem of her skirt and quickly caught up to Fang Chen. As she stared at his back, a hint of respect and a tinge of gratitude appeared in her eyes.
"Martial uncle, thank you for what you did just now. If it weren't for you, I would have undoubtedly been humiliated by Jiang Qin."
She had treated him so coldly and disrespectfully earlier, yet when she was in trouble, he still stepped forward without hesitation to defend her and vent her anger. Thinking of this, she could not help but feel guilty about how she had behaved towards him back at the pavilion. Fang Chen did not pay these matters any mind. He said earnestly, "A person's energy is limited. Between the martial path and the medical path, you would do well to choose one. Trying to master both at the same time may not be a good thing."
This struck a chord in Yan Yuking's heart.
At present, she had yet to master the way of medicine, and her martial prowess had been surpassed by her peers, leaving her with nothing to show for either path. But she froze the next instant, and could not help muttering under her breath, "Do you even have the right to say that? Isn't Fang Chen himself a dual cultivator of medicine and martial arts? Moreover, his medical skills are heaven-defying, far surpassing my master Qingyun Sect. He should be able to trade a few blows with a ninth-layer foundation establishment realm cultivator, right?" As these thoughts crossed her mind, a bell suddenly tolled across the square. Yan Yuking's expression shifted slightly, and she grew flustered at once. "The selection of our Qingyun Sect is about to begin. Only those who qualify may participate in the Beast-Tide Defense Operation." Is that so? Fang Chen had long been curious about the strength of Qingyun Sect's disciples. As one of the top 3 sects among the 9 major sects, the current generation of disciples should be extraordinarily powerful, so he decided to go and observe. The two arrived at the square, where disciples from every peak were arriving one after another. No sooner had they arrived than a beautiful female disciple in bright, gorgeous attire came forward to greet them. "Yuking, you're here so early." This cheerful, lively female disciple linked arms with her affectionately. Only then did she notice Fang Chen standing beside her. Seeing his handsome, delicate features and skin even fairer and more supple than a woman's, she teased playfully, Hey, Yuking, you've been keeping secrets. You got a lover and didn't even tell your sisters." Yan Yuking was startled and immediately snapped, "Stop talking nonsense. This is my martial uncle, Fang Chen." The female disciple looked suddenly enlightened. "Oh, so he's that nominal martial uncle of yours. Yuking, didn't you say you'd teach him a harsh lesson when you saw him, to make him give up and leave on his own?" Another female disciple also wore a confused expression. "That's right. You also said you couldn't hold your head up high having a martial uncle like him, so why are you wandering around with him?" Yan Yuking wanted to vanish on the spot. The foolish words she had spoken before were actually heard by Fang Chen right to his face. She wished she could burrow into a crack in the ground, her face flaming bright red. She did not dare to meet Fang Chen's gaze at all, and hung her head low to her chest. Her face burning, she stammered, "Martial uncle, you. Don't listen to their nonsense. I never said that." Her 2 best friends frowned. "Yuking, you literally said that. MMPH. Yan Yuking quickly clapped her hands over their mouths, her tone murderous. "Say another word, and we all die together." The 2 friends finally fell silent, their faces filled with confusion. What had gotten into Yan Yuking? Could this Fang Chen have some dirt on her? Was there any need to be this afraid of him? The cheerful girl brushed Yan Yuking's hand away, her gaze challenging. "Hey, you're around the same age as us. What right do you have to be Yan Yuking's martial uncle, exactly?" The other girl also spoke indignantly on Yan Yuking's behalf.
You have to make us fully convinced of your qualifications. Fang Chen found the situation absurdly amusing. What could they possibly do to him even if they refused to accept it? Seeing that they were only speaking up for Yan Yuking and harbored no ill intentions, Fang Chen asked with amused interest, "What would it take for you to be convinced?" This, the two girls had only intended to stand up for their friend. When actually asked to come up with a way to test Fang Chen, they had not thought of anything for the moment. Suddenly, the cheerful girl pointed at the already constructed combat arena. "You go up on stage later and spar with the elites of our Taisheng sect. If you perform well, we will acknowledge you as Yan Yuking's martial uncle." Fang Chen asked in surprise, "I am a disciple of an external sect. Can I even participate in the internal grand competition of your Taisheng sect disciples?" Yan Yuking was nearly driven crazy by her two friends, and hurriedly explained, "Martial uncle, don't listen to these two girls' nonsense. They are talking about the friendly match. Every year during our Taisheng sect disciple grand competition, disciples from other sects come specially to observe. So after the grand competition ends, we will hold a special friendly match, where external sect disciples can challenge one of our sect's disciples, or our sect's disciples can seek guidance from an external observing disciple." Fang Chen understood. Taisheng sect was one of the three most powerful sects, and the strength of its disciples was closely watched by all other sects. Therefore, every time the disciple grand competition was held, there were always people from other sects coming to observe. In order to showcase the prowess of its disciples, Taisheng sect openly held this friendly match, allowing visitors to witness the strength of Taisheng sect's disciples up close. It had to be said that Taisheng sect was extremely confident in the strength of its disciples. Fang Chen smiled. "Sparring is unnecessary. It can easily harm good relations. I will just observe." The Taisheng sect's friendly spar was held to showcase the strength of its own disciples. If their disciples won, all was well, but if they lost, Taisheng sect would lose no small amount of face. TCH, the two female disciples drawled in unison, rolling their eyes at the same time, convinced that Fang Chen was clearly guilty and too cowardly to step onto the stage. Yan Yuking wished she could strangle the two of them on the spot, and explained with a bitter smile, "Martial uncle, these two are my friends. One is Cheng Xiaoleng, a sword path genius from Hidden Sword Peak. The other is Chai Yingrong, a palm technique master from Green Bamboo Peak. They have been thoroughly spoiled by their masters and fellow disciples, so they speak without filter. Please do not take their impudent words to heart." Cheng Xiaoleng, the bright and cheerful one among the pair, pouted her soft lips. "Who are you talking about? If you have the courage, step onto the arena and fight me." Fang Chen smiled without a word, strolled to a spectator seat, sat down casually, and waited quietly for the grand competition to commence. At that moment, a commotion broke out among the disciples, and someone shouted, "First senior brother Huo Xianchen of the Sect Master Peak has arrived. First senior sister Lai Shiqian of Hidden Sword Peak and first senior brother Wang Yunj of Green Bamboo Peak are here too. They are all elite disciples of the sect, exempt from the selection, and already qualified to head to the beast-tide front lines." "What could they be doing here?" Someone replied, "Naturally, they are here to bolster the prestige of our Taisheng sect. Have you not noticed how many observers from external sects have come this time? If any of them possess overwhelming strength that our ordinary disciples cannot contend against, these elites will step forward to uphold the sect's honor." The new disciples came to a sudden realization. The Taisheng sect would never have held this sparring competition if it lacked the confidence to stand against any challenger. Elite disciples like Huo Xianchen were the sect's grand finale trump cards. Huo Xianchen arrived surrounded by throngs of adoring disciples, like the moon circled by a sea of stars. From afar, he spotted Yan Yuking, who stood out like a crane among chickens. She wore a goose, yellow-wide, sleeved long dress, her features fair and elegant, with bright eyes and pearly white teeth. Standing among the crowd of disciples, she caught every eye at first glance. Though she did not compare to Xia Keoj, she was still a peerless beauty among her peers. He waved at Yan Yuking from a distance. "Junior sister Yuking, come over and watch the battle with us. I shall introduce junior sister Lai and junior brother Wang to you." Yan Yuking had long moved among the sect's elite disciples, seeking to befriend the talents of every peak. But birds of a feather flock together, and people divide into groups. Among the top-tier talents, only Huo Xianchen, who frequently interacted with Yan Yuking to get closer to Xia Keoj, paid her any mind. Exceptionally powerful prodigies like Lai Shiqian and Wang Yunj barely spared her a glance. Now that Huo Xianchen was acting as a go-between, everyone assumed Yan Yuking would soon be on good terms with them and would be overjoyed at this opportunity. Cheng Xiaoleng and Chai Yingrong also wore looks of delight as they urged her. "Yuking, go quickly. Haven't you been longing to get to know senior sister Lai and senior brother Wang for ages?
However, to everyone's utter shock, Yan Yuking only cupped her hands in a respectful salute to Lai Shiqian and Wang Yunj from afar. Yuking greets senior sister Lai and senior brother Wang. This
junior sister must accompany martial uncle, so I cannot join you. Please forgive my rudeness. She had already fully acknowledged Fang Chen as her martial uncle in her heart. With an elder present, she naturally could not abandon him to curry favor with others. This reaction made Hua Xingshen's face stiffen slightly. The scene he had imagined, where Yan Yuking would run over with eyes full of unbridled joy, never came to pass. Instead, she had politely turned him down. Lai Shiqian felt deeply humiliated. She had ignored Yan Yuking in the past, and today she had deigned to give the girl a chance to curry favor, yet she was rejected. HMPH, this junior sister Yan certainly has an arrogant, high and mighty attitude. Wang Yunj was also visibly displeased. It seems this junior sister Yan looks down on me, Wang Mu. Hua Xingshen immediately smoothed things over for Yan Yuking. You cannot blame junior sister Yuking for this. She certainly wishes to get acquainted with junior sister Lai and junior brother Wang. It is only divine physician Shangyuan who forced her to accompany that martial uncle. Even if she is extremely unwilling, she has no other choice. Hearing this, Lai Shiqian and Wang Yunj turned their gazes to Fang Chen, standing beside Yan Yuking, and frowned in unison. He was that useless disciple from Qingyun Sect with no spirit roots. Would Yan Yuking not lose all face by acknowledging someone like him as her martial uncle? Hua Xingshen smiled bitterly. Junior sister Yuking has no choice in this matter. All right, everyone take your seats. Once she is done with her current obligations, I will have her bring some high-grade spirit wine to apologize to junior sister Lai and junior brother Wang. As all the disciples took their seats, the Tai Shang Sect disciples' grand competition officially began. Similar to Qingyun Sect, elite disciples were exempt from the grand competition, so only disciples below the 8th layer of the Foundation establishment realm were competing in sparring matches. Next match, Yan Yuking of Divine Physician Peak against Feng Heiyuan of the 8 Trigrams Sect. The faces of Cheng Xiaoleng and Chai Yingrong changed simultaneously. Cheng Xiaoleng said, Yuking, you are so unlucky, you actually drew this guy. She cast a sympathetic look at Yan Yuking as she spoke. Chai Yingrong also wore a glum expression. This draw is completely unfair. Feng Heiyuan was a core talent heavily nurtured by the 8 Trigrams Sect. His cultivation had reached the 7th layer of the Foundation establishment realm, and he cultivated an immensely powerful leg technique. Earlier, he had defeated an opponent of the same realm with only 3 kicks. Cheng Xiaoleng huffed, that's exactly right. Our Yuking is only at the 6th layer of the Foundation establishment realm. How can she possibly compete with him? Yan Yuking's face turned even paler, and she cursed her bad luck in her heart, having drawn the strongest possible opponent. She took a deep breath, stood up, and said, Martial uncle, I will head to the arena first. Fang Chen, however, gave Feng Heiyuan a meaningful glance and said, Do you want to defeat him? Cheng Xiaoleng rolled her eyes and said, Isn't that obvious? Who would join the sect grand competition aiming to lose? Yan Yuking let out a helpless, amused sigh. Martial uncle, what sort of question is that? How could this disciple not want to win? But the gap in our strength is undeniable. Securing victory will be extraordinarily difficult for me. Fang Chen continued to ask, Would you accept a win that is less than honorable? Confusion flickered across Yan Yuking's eyes. She thought to herself, in the face of absolute strength, is there any room for petty tricks? Fang Chen stared at Feng Heiyuan, his gaze sharp and piercing. If you wish to defeat him fair and square with your own strength, it is indeed near impossible. But if you do not mind taking a clever shortcut, I can point you down a viable path. Clever shortcut, Cheng Xiaoleng and Chai Yingrong wore expressions of deep suspicion. Feng Heiyuan's strength was plain for all to see. What possible loophole could they exploit against him? Yan Yuking was also rather skeptical, but she responded, Speak freely, martial uncle. As long as it does not violate sect rules, there will be no issue. Fang Chen nodded slowly. When I observed Feng Heiyuan battling earlier, his right leg was far clumsier than his left. He likely bears an old injury on that leg, which prevents him from channeling his strength smoothly. If you target his right leg, you should achieve unexpected results. Cheng Xiaoleng was stunned. How did I fail to notice that? Chai Yingrong also shook his head blankly. I watched Feng Heiyuan very carefully earlier. There is no obvious difference between his 2 legs. Even Yan Yuking was half convinced, but clinging to the hope of testing the theory, she bowed with cupped fists. Thank you for your guidance, martial uncle. She immediately leaped onto the combat stage to face Feng Heiyuan in battle. Hua Xingshen watched with relaxed, unhurried poise. Junior sister Lai, senior brother Wang, what do you make of junior sister Yuking's match today?
Lai Shiqian spoke in a cold, flat tone.
What is there to say? She is only at the 6th layer of the Foundation establishment realm. How could she possibly defeat a leg technique master like Feng Guchan?
Wang Yunj held a cup of wine, sipping it slowly, his tone indifferent.
Her defeat is inevitable. If she apologizes properly to me later, and I am in a good mood, I may even deign to point out her shortcomings.
Hua Xiangchen laughed heartily. Then I shall thank junior brother Wang on junior sister Yuking's behalf first, only.
After the two, on the combat stage, had exchanged blows for some time, Hua Xiangchen frowned slightly. Wang Yunj also set down his wine cup, saying, 20 exchanges already, and they are still fighting. Yan Yuking's strength seems slightly stronger than I predicted.
Lai Shiqian's eyes turned sharp as she spotted the anomaly. Have you two noticed? She has been targeting Feng Guchan's right leg this entire time.
At her reminder, the pair observed carefully and realized Lai Shiqian was correct.
Yan Yuking focused all her attacks on his right leg, and Feng Guchan seemed to hold back out of fear, retracting several powerful strikes because of it. Only then did they spot the clue.
A flicker of surprise crossed Lai Shiqian's face. Feng Guchan's right leg seems somewhat stiff. Could he be injured?
Wang Yunji's gaze shifted, and realization dawned on him.
Senior brother Hua, this junior sister Yan is not as devoid of martial talent as you claimed. None of us noticed the problem with Feng Guchan's right leg, yet she perceived it with her sharp
senses. I am growing somewhat interested in her now. They were not the only ones shocked. All the seated elders and disciples also wore stunned expressions. No one had noticed Feng Guchan's leg injury, yet Yan Yuking had managed to detect it.
What should have been a one-sided crushing defeat for Yan Yuking had turned into a grueling tug of war, all thanks to her strategy of focusing attacks on Feng Guchan's right leg.
In the end, as Feng Guchan unleashed consecutive attacks, his leg injury worsened. Yan Yuking found an opening and struck him with a palm blow that sent him flying off the combat stage.
Feng Guchan's eyes brimmed with unwillingness, which eventually faded into a thread of admiration. He bowed with cupped fists.
Junior sister Yan has exceptional perception. My leg injury was nearly fully healed, leaving almost no visible trace. I never expected you would still discover it. Yan Yuking was breathing heavily, a tinge of guilt on her face. This victory is unmerited.
Feng Guchan waved his hand dismissively. Perception is also part of a martial artist's strength. This senior brother is thoroughly convinced of his loss.
Under the shocked gazes of the entire audience, the referee announced that Yan Yuking had won a complete victory. Yan Yuking drifted back to her seat, each step feeling as if she was treading on cotton, the situation almost surreal.
She had actually leaped across realms to defeat Feng Guchan, a master who had achieved great mastery in leg techniques.
Under the gaze of countless onlookers, she could barely contain the joy in her heart. When she spotted Fang Chen seated in his spot, the respect in her eyes deepened further. If not for her martial uncle's guidance, she would have had zero chance of winning. As such, she lifted the hem of her yellow long skirt, and ran over with a smile, coincidentally passing the seating area where Hua Xiangchen and the others were gathered.
Hua Xiangchen laughed. Congratulations, junior sister Yuking. Both junior sister Lai and junior brother Wang were extremely impressed by your performance just now. Hurry and prepare a pot of spirit wine to toast the two.
Of them, if they are in a good mood, they may even give you guidance. That would be worth more than several months, even a full year of bitter cultivation.
Yan Yuking had no leisure to entertain the three of them.
She offered a hurried smile and said, My apologies, 3 senior brothers and sisters. I must go attend to my martial uncle. We shall do so another time when the opportunity arises. She returned to Fang Chen's side, beaming with joy, and exclaimed excitedly, Martial uncle, I followed your method, and I truly won. Fang Chen let out a dry chuckle and said, This method is not exactly honorable, after all. Using it too frequently in sparring matches between fellow sect disciples will easily erode our harmonious bond. You may use it without scruple against outsiders, but among peers of the same sect, it is best to resort to such tricks far less often.
As the one who had pointed out this approach, Fang Chen also felt a measure of awkwardness about the matter.
A tinge of shame crossed Yan Yuking's face. She indeed did not feel she had won fairly with this method, but that did nothing to diminish her gratitude toward Fang Chen.
She took out a flask of spirit wine, poured 2 cups, handed one to Fang Chen, and downed the other in a single gulp, saying, Martial uncle, this cup is a toast to thank you.
This sight made Cheng Xiaoleng jump in shock, and she gasped in a low voice, Yuking, what are you doing? Are you not intentionally offending senior sister Lai and senior brother Wang? You just told them you would toast them another time, yet you turn around and toast Fang Chen instead.
Yan Yuking did not spare a glance at Hua Xiangchen and the other two's expressions.
A look of relief spread across her exquisite jade-like features, and she said, Let them think what they will. I am showing respect to my own martial uncle. What wrong have I committed? After the incident with Jiang Qin, she had gradually seen through the truth of her circumstances. Jiang Qin had bullied and oppressed her for years, and of all the countless connections she had painstakingly forged, had any ever stood up in her defense? They merely treated her as a pretty ornament to be called upon when needed, and cast aside and ignored entirely when she was of no use to them. On the contrary, this martial uncle, whom she had only just met, had spoken up for her and pointed out the path to victory in her spar. Was there any need to even ask which mattered more? This scene completely stripped Lai Shiqian and Wang Yunj of all face. Lai Shiqian flew into a rage, roaring, "How outrageous! Who does she think I, Lai Shiqian, am to humiliate me so blatantly?" Wang Yunj's face was also dark with unmasked fury, and he thought to himself, "I gave her face by asking her to toast us, and she dared refuse, yet she respectfully toasts some random martial uncle. She values this martial uncle that much, does she? When the friendly match commences later, I shall see exactly what capabilities this martial uncle of hers possesses." The sect grand tournament raged on. Yan Yuqing stepped onto the arena 2 more times. Fresh off her earlier resounding victory, her state of mind was excellent, so she performed far beyond her usual level, claiming 2 consecutive wins. She looked bright and energized as she said to Fang Chen, martial uncle, "If I win 1 more match, I will rank among the top 10. This was the best result she had ever achieved in all her past grand tournament appearances. However, when the schedule for the final 10 matches was released, the smile vanished from Yan Yuqing's face. The final 10 matches pitted the highest, forming disciples of this tournament against each other, so they were naturally vastly more difficult than the previous rounds. Yan Yuqing was scheduled to be the 9th combatant to enter the arena, and her opponent was a female disciple named Luo Tenjiao. Yan Yuqing thought to herself, of all people, it had to be her. Cheng Xiaoling pressed a hand to her forehead and sighed, "Yuqing, did you forget to check the almanac before leaving home today?" Chai Yingrong also wore a deeply sympathetic expression as he said, "Your luck is just abysmally terrible. The 2 strongest disciples in this entire tournament are Feng Heiyuan and Luo Tenjiao, and you have ended up facing both of them." Yan Yuqing also wore a bitter smile as she said, "How could I possibly be a match for senior sister Luo? Her strength is even a notch above my own." At this, she could not help but joke, "Martial uncle, is Luo Tenji injured anywhere? If you spot a flaw, don't forget to tell me." Fang Chen was equal parts amused and exasperated as he said, "She is in perfect health." Just as Yan Yuqing's bitter smile deepened, Fang Chen said, "However, there is still some time before you are called to the arena. I can help you raise your strength a little in this window. Whether you can win against her or not will ultimately be up to you." Yan Yuqing's face was filled with utter disbelief, and Cheng Xiaoleng even spoke bluntly, "Don't spout wild nonsense." Chai Yingrong also shook his head and said, "There is only 1 Shichen left before Yuqing steps into the arena. How could the vast gap between their strengths possibly be closed in that short time?" The 2 of them cast sidelong glances at Fang Chen, thinking that he had grown arrogant after pointing out Feng Heiyuan's leg injury and helping Yan Yuqing win a single match. Luo Tenji was in peak condition, after all. She could not be defeated by mere cheap tricks. Fang Chen, however, had his own reasoning. He asked, "Yuqing, the palm technique you cultivate should be quite remarkable, is it not?" A hint of proud confidence appeared on Yan Yuqing's face, and she said, "Naturally, while our divine physician Peak does not focus on martial prowess, my master has vast connections, and he has no shortage of all kinds of top-tier cultivation methods. The one I practice is the cloud weave palm, known as the finest palm technique across all the lands of the 9 sects. Even among high-rank, profound-level cultivation methods, it stands head and shoulders above the rest." Cheng Xiaoleng and Chai Yingrong sighed with undisguised envy, saying, "That is the truth. The divine physician Peak never lacks for cultivation methods. Why else do you think everyone is so eager to become Elder Shangyuan's disciple?" Fang Chen nodded in understanding. This aligned perfectly with what he had observed. He then asked further, "But do you believe you are bringing out the full power that your palm technique is meant to have?" Yan Yuqing, who had been brimming with pride mere moments ago, could not help but feel overcome with guilt. She said, "My natural comprehension is lacking, and I am the only one who practices this cultivation method. I have no senior or peer to consult for guidance, and have been fumbling through its practice entirely on my own all this time." Fang Chen said, "That is no surprise. I have observed your palm art boasts fierce, well-honed stances but lacks true underlying power, much like a small child hefting a heavy warhammer. Though you possess a formidable tool, you cannot unleash even half of its full might. There is a critical flaw in your cultivation practice."
Do you have the cultivation method for this palm art on your person? Yan Yuking froze for a brief moment, then said, I do have it with me, martial uncle. Do you wish to look at it?
Fang Chen nodded and said, I will help you examine and study it thoroughly to see if I can guide you to cultivate it to the great completion realm. If we succeed, you will still have a fair chance of fighting against Luo Tanjiao.
For an instant, not only were Cheng Xiaoleng and Chai Yingrong struck dumb with shock, even Yan Yuking wore a look of complete bewilderment.
She asked uncertainly, Martial uncle, do you mean to say you will fully comprehend this cultivation method within a single hour, then teach me to master it?
Fang Chen did not waste any more words, simply stating, bring it to me.
Yan Yuking hesitated slightly. This was the treasure she was most proud of, her most closely guarded, greatest secret. She would have flatly refused anyone else who dared ask to see it, yet the one making the request now was Fang Chen.